Hello and welcome. Welcome to Diverse Conversations. This is Ashka Patel. Thank you very much for joining me once again on a continuation of our series exploring the Canadian pharmacy innovation space. Today, we're changing tracks a little bit to explore how point of care tests play a role in community pharmacy and also pharmacy in general. As you may know, in Ontario, effective July 1st, 2022, Part A pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, registered pharmacy students, and interns were authorized to perform certain point-of-care tests for the purpose of assisting patients with the management of their medications to treat chronic diseases. The point-of-care test within the scope included glucose, HbA1c, lipids, and PT-INR. So with this expanded scope of practice, it's also very important for us to understand the technology and also how can we integrate point-of-care tests into community pharmacy space and practice especially. Today joining me is none other than Sharmila Sriram, who's the founder and CEO of Spectrum Medical Diagnostics based in Mississauga, Ontario. Spectrum MDX specializes in rapid point-of-care screening devices with over 25 years of industry experience. Sharmila's inspiration to begin this venture started with a passion to help drive positive change to community healthcare. Her collaborations with health experts, physicians, and clinicians over the years allowed her to create and enhance patient-centric treatment and diagnosis. She has been at the forefront of point-of-care technology for many years, and she continues to leverage the latest technologies and innovations to provide accurate and accessible screening tools across the country. Spectrum Medical Diagnostics is a market leader in point-of-care solutions and is a certified Canadian manufacturer who offers an innovative portfolio of products designed to optimize patient screening in any setting, including pharmacies. Some solutions are rapid HbA1c, vitamin D, Strep, Influenza, and more. The healthcare industry is shifting towards rapid point-of-care testing in communities, and Spectrum MDX is at the forefront of this transition. Their objective is to assist healthcare providers in delivering informative, timely results for patient-centric care. With this model, patients can avoid lengthy laboratory wait times and receive immediate results on the spot with a peace of mind and better health outcomes. By adopting point-of-care testing, pharmacists can help address the significant backlogs that exist in our current system, especially within hospitals and outpatient clinics, and minimize the strain on the Canadian healthcare system. Spectrum is passionate about driving positive change for a better tomorrow. And this brings me great pleasure because this is a conversation where we'll be really unpacking point-of-care testing and, what is it like for a pharmacy to implement this, and also how does different service providers such as Spectrum MDX support pharmacies in implementing these tests. So with great pleasure, I welcome you and introduce you to Sharmila. Okay. All right. So welcome back. Thank you for Sharmila for joining us today with this incredible conversation where we're going to be talking about point of care testing and, how it plays an important role in community pharmacy, especially with the growing rate at which point of care testing innovation is happening. And I thought, who better than the founder and CEO of Spectrum Medical Diagnostics to come and talk to us about this. Sharmila, thank you so much for taking this time to have this conversation with us.
Of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess, as I always ask all my guests, when they come into this podcast, tell us a little bit about your journey, your professional journey to becoming the founder and CEO of Spectrum Medical Diagnostics.
Of course, yes. My inspiration to start this or begin this venture really started many years ago. I was able to, what I wanted to do was really translate my passion into how I want to do things within the company. And my collaborations with physicians and clinicians over the years is really what helped me drive me to that point. I essentially want to make a difference within the healthcare system, and I knew that was my driving force. What could I do to help improve health outcomes? How could I help people identify with their health and really get a proper treatment and diagnosis quicker, more efficiently, if you will. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I guess if you can also share a little bit more in terms of, what is Spectrum Medical Diagnostics all about in terms of the services and the products you provide, just so that our audience gets a better understanding of, your business.
Of course, yes. So we have over 25 years, or I have over 25 years of industry experience, and I essentially started within the substance abuse detection industry. So I used to work with many physicians, addiction rehabilitation centers, and so many more companies out there. And so over the years, though, we moved or sort of evolved and expanded our product portfolio to include other types of rapid point of care products, such as vitamin D, HbA1c, Strep, and so much more. So we are a market leader within rapid diagnostics, and again, over 25 years of experience. We're a Health Canada licensed organization, and all of our products are Health Canada licensed as well. And I'm proud to say that we are listed as a Canadian manufacturer, and we also launched our own brand of products about 8 years ago, our own so-called Spec Check.
Wow.
And yes, we took feedback from our clients over the years, and I'm so happy because we were able to basically create a working platform that our clients gave us suggestions for. And so we took all of that and really created a wonderful product with, designed to give us high quality, accurate results. And so happy about that. And we've been just powering through ever since then.
Absolutely. And I mean, as a healthcare provider myself, I can definitely attest, like, having that efficacy and that reliability is so important, especially where we are doing testing for our patients, and point of care testing. Given that it's an emerging area of expertise, it's great to know that it's Canadian made and Canadian supported. It's always great to, support businesses that have that Canadian-ness to it, if that's a word even. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. That.
Right. But at the same time, I think maybe you can also talk about this, is, how was it? Because I know it's never easy to bring in innovation into healthcare. Like, I know how difficult it is trying to do that, but man, it's like the worst. Not the worst, but it's just there's a lot of red tape, a lot of blockages, a lot of status quo that it's very difficult to push that needle forward. How did you overcome some of the challenges or barriers you faced to launch your company and also to grow it to the scale that it has today?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So, many years ago, there was no rapid point of care testing with Canada. There was a lot happening in the US, but not north of the border. And so I thought, well, there's obviously a need for this. And so, like I said, I started within drug testing. And at that point, it was only laboratory screening. And I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a system and a process that healthcare professionals can implement and integrate into their existing programs. And so going back so many years, there were some barriers. People thought, well, the laboratory is a gold standard. And, it still is till this day, but they realized it was holding back the treatment. In that particular case, at that time, drug testing, they thought, well, because drugs can metabolize and very quickly and out of their system. So I was able to find some great products at that point, and I approached these clinicians and I said, hey, listen, we have some great new solutions for you. So so fast forward so many years, it's now the norm. It's something that's very common, and I mean, not just with the drug testing, of course, but even into infectious disease. Even take COVID, for instance. That was a logical transition for my company, but also many organizations and clinical settings were obviously implementing COVID testing. So to answer your question, there were some barriers. With the company side, I wore many hats over the years, and I knew that I had to jump in. I basically jumped in, blood, sweat, and tears. And I thought, okay, what's next? How do I get this rolling? How do I bring in clients? How do I grow my company? And so my extensive network obviously, helped me with that. I had great relationships over the years, and they're the ones who actually encouraged me to start my own company. We had such, endearing relationships over the years with so many people. And they said, Sharm, you really should do your own thing, because your passion is really just, speaking for itself. And I'm very passionate, as you can tell.
Yes.
And so, but my barrier, my challenge, I would say, was really, how do I put all these facets of business operations together
Mm-hmm.
to be cohesive? I wore many hats, but how was I supposed to put all that together? So, and I was a one-man operation many years ago where I was doing my own marketing, my own sales, my own accounting, and I'm terrible at accounting, but I was doing it. And it's, I know my strengths, and that was not one of them, but nevertheless, that was what I faced. And then of course, now going into the products, that came, I don't want to say naturally, but I think that practitioners or professionals really started to understand, if we can't get quicker results, well, then it's going to impact treatment at some point.
Yes.
Now, there are some cases where laboratory testing is still required, and of course, and we're not trying to take away from that. I think it's more just understanding with certain types of conditions or certain types of testing, it's important to implement rapid because look at the constraints in our healthcare system today.
Exactly.
The wait times. So, and that's what I experienced. And I think that, yes, is there actually, I wouldn't say barrier. I think it's more just creating more awareness is what we need to do.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but I definitely agree. I think, I'll just interject my point and I'll kind of let you take the space back.
Of course.
But I agree with you. I think the healthcare provider buy-in and the patient buy-in are critical to the success of any new innovation we bring into healthcare. And I think you were able to tap into that potential, through your own true innovator hats that you wore, and look at what that has led to today. But at the same time, I guess any interesting situations or use cases that you came across for point of care testing, that kind of really helped you kind of figure out, what, this is why this needs to be done, or this is why we need to have point of care testing available. So accessibility to point of care testing is so important. Was there any particular cases or situations or examples?
I mean, there's a few examples I could give. One in particular dates back to the the late 90s. I was working with a number of physicians with the methadone maintenance or opioid dependency clinics. And so a major gap that really came up was, they said, Sharm, we can't determine if the patient is spiking or quickly metabolizing methadone, because a lot of pharmacists or addiction centers or addiction medicine physicians were prescribing methadone for methadone carries.
Right.
But methadone has high street value, and so they could not determine that. At that point, the laboratory testing was the only option for metabolite screening. So I'm happy to say that I was part of that program, and I was able to spearhead and work with R&D, create a new test, a rapid test that incorporated the same assay and antibodies from the EDP, or for EDP, which is methadone that the labs were using. So in a nutshell, that was something very interesting, and actually, I want to say a milestone for testing within Canada, because now physicians were able to quickly determine if a patient was actually compliant with the program or not. And then, so from that point, even now, fast forward to now, so many companies are, insisting on screening for methadone metabolites, Suboxone. There's so many key metabolites. And so I was instrumental many years ago bringing that to the place. And that's a major trend, of course. And that really set the standards, I would say, for rapid point of care testing within Canada, at least within the drug testing. Now, other industries, now, of course, we have brand new tests like vitamin D, efficiency screening. That's of course a global health concern now. There's some trends happening right now, and so I would say that's something that's really important, where we can identify, as opposed to waiting days on end from a laboratory, we can identify it now, or help our clients identify what's happening right now. What is the big picture? And patients want that as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? I commend you for, I know it must have been a huge challenge for you to kind of undertake, to kind of changed the way, things were done, especially with methadone. And like, I don't have much experience working with methadone as a pharmacist, but, hearing my friends and my peers talk about it, I know how big of a challenge it is. So I can already see how we can, potentially use these point of care testing in community pharmacies right now if we have the scope of practice. But unfortunately, we don't have it for methadone just yet. We have it for glucose, we have for HbA1c, PTINR, and lipids right now. But I feel like it is the area which is still up and coming for pharmacists. So I hope that in the near future we'll see more and more of these tests added to our armor, so that we can actually start offering these tests in community pharmacies as well. Kudos to you for being an innovator and taking the charge and making the change.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it's been quite the journey, of course. Yes. And I do see all these other tests being added to the community pharmacy services. I mean, this is what's happening right now. There's various pilots happening within Canada as we speak, actually, for other types of tests, the HbA1c, Strep, influenza. It's happening. So it's inevitable that it's coming to Ontario and all the other provinces. Yes. It's going to happen. This is how I would say the industry is evolving.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And also, like, let's be honest. I think the way our consumers or patients, like, the way we consume healthcare is changing, right? It's no longer the traditional way of, going to a prescriber first, which could be a physician or a nurse practitioner, and then going to a pharmacy to pick up your medications. That's changing rapidly as we speak with the introduction of technology into healthcare, especially during the pandemic. That's changing a lot. And I think a lot of patients now do want these rapid point of care tests because, there are people who do not want to wait. And I can understand why, because some interventions need to be made right away. There are some things why should you wait for 2 or 3 weeks to get an appointment, take your lab test, go back to your doctor to have it read or whatever, when you can have another healthcare provider who is capable of doing that, be kind of doing it for you in 5 to 10 minutes,
And right. And look at if you think about the long-term positive, outcome or impact it would have on our healthcare system. Yes. Look what we're facing right now. Long wait times, long, not just for the laboratories, but for seeing a physician, bedside testing, all of these areas, all of these, I would say industries or healthcare settings are now implementing rapid testing. Hospitals are doing bedside testing too. They have laboratories, but they're doing, rapid bedside testing. Yes. Why? Because it's the stat testing. It's the immediate results. And like you said, we live in a busy world. We're all busy. We don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. I've had that experience too. I mean, we all have. Yes. We know what it's like to wait days on end to receive results. So now when you go to a laboratory, you can just log in now and get your own report. We don't need to wait for the doctor to call us. There were times where I thought, oh my gosh, the doctor didn't call me. What does that mean?
Exactly. It was like that cricket silence.
Do I have a cholesterol issue or what? Can I find out right now? I mean, I'm really busy. I'm too busy for this. So now we go online and we just get a report. I don't need to call my doctor. I barely talk to my doctor. And going back to the community pharmacy services, more patients or people see their pharmacists more than their own doctors.
Yes.
I personally walk across the street. I don't want to talk to my doctor. I want to go talk to my friend, the pharmacist at the Shoppers across the street, because he's so knowledgeable. And actually there's 2 of them there, but you know what? I can say, hey, all right, what does this mean?
Exactly.
They're knowledgeable, and the recent guidelines, the changes in January that took place. Yes. Pharmacists can now prescribe for various ailments. That's wonderful. And that's part of the Canadian Pharmacy Association, right? They want to expand the scope of the pharmacists. So rapid point of care testing is not any different from that. They were running COVID tests, other types of tests. It's a seamless transition in my opinion.
Agreed. And it's also like, again, like, to what you already alluded to, it is the way we are providing or caring for our patients is rapidly changing. And I think we need to keep up with the times to be able to serve the needs and those needs are changing, right? They're no longer the same as it was before. Classic case. I mean, as I already alluded to this earlier, but I can already see those methadone, point of care tests being such a huge, filling such a huge need in pharmacy practice if we were given the authority to be able to test for those, right? Like I can already see that makes such a huge change to how we are able to provide care for our patients who are, using methadone for substance use and abuse disorders. So again, I think the potential is huge, but I also just like that success you had with your methadone and that led to the growth of your company. What are some other highlights or achievements since the pandemic that you wish to share with our audience?
Oh, of course, yes. So, I mean, of course, with the pandemic, that brought on, it really tested our resilience.
I can imagine.
Everybody. I
Yes.
think with everybody, not just with business, of course, but mentally,
Yes.
just there was so many profound impacts from that.
Mhm.
But I learned that we could basically take a challenge and turn that into an opportunity. And so I'm grateful for not COVID, but the opportunity to have been able to think outside that box and bring in solutions that made sense during that time. Of course, the rapid COVID test. It was a seamless transition for my company, of course. And so we started promoting that. And so because we were able to work with so many companies, I mean, I'm so happy that I could say that we were able to help a lot of our clients sustain their business operations because they were scared, the lockdowns. And then once the lockdowns were removed, oh my gosh, our employees carrying COVID. So I was able to work with them very closely, and again, my lovely relationships that I have, and so we were able to help them, and so that opened up actually other doors, and we're now into medtech. This is, I thought after that, I thought, okay, what can I do to heighten rapid point of care screening? What is it that we could offer our customers to really not just streamline their operations, but also enhance that? And then, of course, we're patient-centric. I'm always thinking about the end result. What is the end result? How can we help patients that are being tested? That's the end result. I want to help enhance that. So I'm proud to say that we launched our new digital, like online web-based platform to complement our products, because it's a great tool to be able to for professionals to basically use, capture results, generate reports on the spot, and going back to the pharmacies, they love it because they can print results right on the spot. And this is what consumers want, right? When I go in, I want a result right away. I still want that paper result. I know we're trying to keep things as green as possible, but I would like to see what exactly, the health, I guess the general history and prognosis, whatever the case is. I'd like to see that. And so we've developed a system, and that's phase 1. And then phase 2 and 3 will be artificial intelligence as well as treatment predictors. Wow. And we're going to expand that right across from substance abuse right down to our newer products for HbA1c, cholesterol, ferritin. I mean, there's so much that we have coming. And so the pandemic really, honestly, it helped with that and gave us more resources to be able to venture into medtech, which I'm so thrilled about.
That is fantastic. Oh my gosh, look at you go, from point of care testing to medtech. And I do see them as a complementary, right? Like where it only makes sense. And like, I'm glad that you're bringing them together to make it easy for everyone who's the end user of these technologies. It really makes our lives easy as a healthcare provider. I can attest to this. It's challenging in community pharmacies to find time to do anything extra. So if we can somehow streamline that process, somehow streamline that workflow to make my job easier to provide care for a patient, I would definitely do it. So if you have already built this platform, kudos to you, because I think that's what's really going to help us as pharmacists and pharmacy professionals to kind of, take up this technology and see how we can. And coming back to your point about the whole paper idea, I mean, I don't blame you, because first, we don't have a good digital platform to begin with in Canada to share health information for patients with different healthcare providers. I hope we'll see that in the next 5 to 10 years, but that's being optimistic about it, too optimistic about it. But, at this point in time, at least having a physical copy will assure that the patient, that they receive the service and they'll be able to share those results with anyone who's providing care to them outside of that pharmacy or that clinic that they visited, right? So at least it's proof that they have received that test, and the soft copies can sometimes not be regarded as official proof. So at least this makes sure that the patient feels comfortable and confident that they have received that result.
Of course, of course. And it's the peace of mind, right? It comes
Yes.
down to peace of mind. And of course, you know, do we need a paper copy? Not necessarily. I mean, we can keep things green. We can have it emailed, of
Yes.
course. And our platform can do that as well. But more importantly, it's giving the patient that peace of mind. You know, what did I just get screened for? What does
Exactly.
it mean? What is it telling me? And we're not suggesting that they shouldn't speak with their physicians. It's
Hmm.
really, this is a systematic approach so that the pharmacist, for instance, can share that with the patient and the physician,
Hmm.
um, and really put together a proper treatment and diagnosis so that the next steps are done quicker. So we've shaved off what, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks maybe, but
Exactly.
because they've come into the setting to run a test and then they have their report. Now they can move forward comfortably and confidently to that next step, whatever that might be.
Exactly, exactly. And you know what, I agree with you because like already I can already picture what would have happened if this was not in place, because it would be, you know, the patient going to the physician, getting tested, waiting a couple of week or 5 days to at least 10 days, getting the test result back, physician prescribing something, patient goes to the pharmacy, pharmacist says, oh, something's wrong with your medication because we can't use this or can't use
Right.
that. Pharmacist then talks to the physician. It's a loop. So if we are able to have all, like, you know, at least the two important healthcare providers who are responsible for diagnosing and prescribing and dispensing, at least we both of them are in the decision making process right from the get-go, which shaves off a lot of
Exactly.
time for the patient, right? Because it
Exactly.
makes like that way the patient gets all the information they need at one point, instead of trying to have to go tittle tattle and kind of say he said, she said, that said, and all of that. um
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. Like, and I think, you know, as you were talking about this med tech platform and this digital platform that you have created, I know how digital technology, especially in healthcare, is still in its infancy. Like we're still just like starting, getting warmed up, as we speak about integrating technology into healthcare. How difficult was it for you to challenge that status quo when you introduced this platform, and you know when you were asking your clinicians and your clinics to kind of take up this service? Was there any challenges for you?
Of course, with any, new solution and new system,
Mm,
is there some reluctance at times? Sure. But, we're pretty good at shedding light and creating awareness, and that's what needs to continue, right? It's just a continuous education. But, we what am I trying to say here? We're trying to basically articulate that, this is a system, this is a required system, this is a
mm,
required product because it will streamline things. And I think the shift in point of care testing happened many years ago. It's
right.
already been happening and it's been evolving since that point.
Mhm.
And so what we're trying to do is, again, continue creating awareness, educating the professionals that, listen, there's certain things that are happening there, and with the constraints on the healthcare system, we can assist you, or adopting these type of programs will streamline your operations, but also think about the patients. We're doing this for the community, and this is what drives my business, but also, or my passion, I mean. And
Right.
then of course what, for instance, pharmacists and other healthcare professionals want to do. We're thinking
Mhm.
about the end result, and this is exactly goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Patients want immediate, and so
Yes.
it's no longer a novelty. It's not a new concept anymore. Rapid point of care testing, it's already been happening. Look how fast COVID testing became or started being implemented at the pharmacies. And
Yes.
it was, there was a pandemic, or we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we need testing.
Yep.
And actually, if you think about it, the laboratories during the pandemic were offering free testing, but people were still going in requesting rapid tests. Why? They wanted results in 10 minutes or a few minutes, and then peace of mind. Again, it goes back to that peace of mind. And
Exactly.
so my thoughts on this is, it's not a new concept. So I think just identifying what their needs, like, okay, what are you seeing? Here are some great tests. Perhaps you could shave off some time for your customers. And we've been receiving excellent feedback with all of our products. We're working with a number of pharmacists, and they love it. They love the idea of screening on site. Our new Results Plus digital platform, it comes together very nicely. And so that's why I don't feel there's much of a barrier in that sense, but I think just learning more, and we're patient people. We're gonna
Yes.
work through things and help them understand the needs, or the best interests that come from this, right? Which is the patient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for shedding light on that, because I think it's always important to keep that in mind that, at the end of the day, the goal is to optimize patient care and provide it in the most accessible and in the most convenience to patients as well, right? And that's where point of care testing fits so nicely, because it really does. As you mentioned earlier in our conversation, we live in very busy times. We don't have time to wait, and we don't have time to go to multiple places. I mean, just the rush hour. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to be exactly traffic. We don't have the road infrastructure.
And we can't help that, but we can help get quicker results. And going back to COVID testing, I know you were very instrumental in bringing that to the Canadian space as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're an expert in this area, and I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on this and what your experience was bringing that to the market.
Absolutely. I mean, so, my experience with COVID-19 testing is I was advocating for it to be implemented into practice of pharmacists and, pharmacy professionals at the time. And really the motivation behind it was that patients should be remember 2020, March 2020, 3 years ago, everything had shut down except for community pharmacies. We were the only only healthcare business that was open during the pandemic. Even physicians' offices were closed. Patients, there was a lineup, I was listening to news report, and there were lineups in front of emergency departments for patients waiting to get their testing done. And I was like, this does not make sense. You are waiting in a line with patients who could be potentially having COVID. You're exposing yourself. I'm like, how is this safe patient care? It does not make sense. And I was like, why are pharmacists not getting the right to, test for COVID-19? Because it doesn't make sense. We are able to provide immunizations. At that point, we were able to provide some immunizations, including influenza. So I'm like, if we are able to provide immunizations, why not testing? And so that's where I kind of started being more vocal about it. And, I said, let's do this, did a research on it. And, it was really, the interesting part was that there was an appetite for pharmacy professionals to consider doing this. It was just making sure that it was done in safe conditions, which I think is a very fair ask for any healthcare provider, that, as long as they're able to provide any services with the proper safety precautions in mind. And I think, I think the rest is history, because look at it, like COVID-19 testing happened in pharmacies. Pharmacists were frontline when it came to the traffic diverted literally from ED into pharmacies. And, vaccinations happened thereafter. And to this date, now, as you mentioned rightly, rapid COVID-19 testing is like the norm, right? Like you go to a conference, you are traveling somewhere, you come back from a vacation. What is it that you do? You just take a kit at home and you start, swabbing yourself, and here you are, right? So I think the appetite is there. I think it's just the awareness, as you also mentioned. I agree, the awareness needs to be raised, and also there needs to be proper channels in terms of making sure that all the stakeholders are properly supported to implement those services. And it should not be just kind of like, okay, here you go, this is what we want from you, tata bye bye. It should never be like that. It should be that they should receive, some instruction or some training for them to feel comfortable. And also with training, proper remuneration. And this is, again, not particularly with it's more for healthcare providers, as we know the current state of it. Healthcare providers are struggling. There's massive burnout. And how is it that money is never going to motivate us to stay in this industry, but at the same time, being able to make sure that we're able to provide patient care in a way that's meaningful. And I can see point of care testing kind of filling that gap, right? Where if I'm a community pharmacist and I want to help my patients who have chronic conditions, can I do that better by having, let's say, an HbA1c point of care testing in my pharmacy? Why not? Because then I can actually make recommendations to the physicians or the prescribers and be like, hey, sugar's not well managed. Let's do something about this, instead of waiting until, whenever they go see that team next. Because guess what? Sometimes patients don't even attend those appointments when they should be attending them.
Exactly. And it's already, going back to the HbA1c or just testing, it's already happening.
Exactly.
The feedback and the responses from that is great, because they're like, Sharman, we're able to get results so quickly, and look at the treatment process. And of course, they're burnt out. I understand that. And so this is a great way, because they're so passionate. Remember I know pharmacists are so passionate about their patients, and I completely understand that. And so going back to that, how can we help them? What can the pharmacists do? And this is great. And this is why I think, and maybe you can shed some light on this, the Canadian Pharmacy Association really pushing that outside the scope. Is that a reason why? And as a pharmacist, you would know more about this.
So one of the things is that currently, so one of the biggest drivers is, pharmacists across Canada, they have varying scope of practices. So what a pharmacist in Ontario can do is very different than a pharmacist in Quebec or a pharmacist in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And what a pharmacist in Alberta can do is so much further advanced than any of the other pharmacists throughout the country. So it's one of the goals is like, how can we make this standardized so that a patient, regardless of which province they go to, they get the same level of care from their pharmacist, regardless of where they go, which I think is a very fair ask, because why should we be confusing patients where, they could be going to, let's say, Alberta, they can be getting a prescription for anything from a pharmacist, compared to in Ontario, they can only get it for 13 different medical conditions, compared to, some other province where we don't even have that prescription authority just yet, right? Like BC is just in the process of implementing that. So I think that's one of the goals is to, how can we harmonize that scope of practice so that all pharmacists will be able to provide point of care testing, which would be universal. It would not be like restrictions to be like, only to so many different point of care tests. At the end of the day, point of care testing is the least invasive type of testing that we can do. And, as long as it's done appropriately, which does not necessarily have as many steps to do compared to a laboratory testing, the results will be pretty much reliable and valid. So I think that's their goal with harmonizing it is one, to make sure that the services are accessible to all patients from their pharmacies throughout Canada, and fits in very nicely with what you're saying here.
And absolutely. And, I see that dynamic, that whole dynamic shift happening. Honestly, this is how this industry is evolving. It's just it's logical. It's coming. Point of care testing is going to be the main type of product because it's that speed. Exactly. I know now in 5 minutes versus 3 days, done, sold.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing is there's enough evidence to support the reliability and the validity of these tests, right? That's where it becomes game changer, is because we know that we can rely on these tests just as well as we can on those lab results, especially for the ones that are already in the market, because they have gone through that process, that extensive process. So as we're talking about this, what's new in the world of point of care testing? What can we look forward to in terms of trends or, any other customer demands or consumer demand when it comes to point of care testing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few things that I see happening. I mean, there's going to be a shift towards that digital era, but also with the point of care products. I mean, we personally have some great new solutions coming later this year for tests such as PSA, so prostate cancer, thyroid, TSH.
Yes.
Ferritin, cholesterol, all conditions that people want to know about. They don't want to wait. So we're proud to say that we have these solutions coming very soon, and they'll be integrated with our online platform as well. And then we're seeing some major developments in terms of the WHO. I mean, they're mentioning how there's a global health concern for various, conditions, vitamin deficiency, HbA1c. I mean, the list goes on, of course. And so I think from my perspective, what can we offer? What can we do to change the stats on that?
Right.
And so, and of course, that big trend is the waiting times. Patients want results now. That is a major driving force within point of care screening, and these changes are coming very, very quickly.
Absolutely. And I think you may have alluded to this earlier, maybe it was part of our conversation earlier as well, but Europe and US are so much ahead of us when it comes to point of care testing, and I feel like Canada isn't going in that direction. It's just our adoption rates are very much slower compared to the rest of the world.
I think we're headed in that direction. We're just so far behind.
Yes.
That infamous rat race. They're just ahead, and we're far down here. Oh, we're I guess Canadians are not considered as early adopters per se, necessarily. Although in some areas, like I mentioned with drug testing, it is, and they won't even look at anything else. It's just rapid. What do you have that's rapid?
Wow.
Whereas other areas, but it's coming. That shift is coming, and again, with that constant just awareness and education, it's going to come. But I think Canada is going to catch up. Maybe not to the same level as the US. They're always ahead. Europe and US is always ahead. I've always found that. But I think that Canadians are going to really quickly understand how much better or sorry, I shouldn't say better, but how much more efficient it would be for
Yes,
them, right? Again, we're not
absolutely.
trying to suggest that laboratories are not needed and physicians are not needed. No, no, no. It's
Hmm.
just, this is just an added tool
Hmm.
to assist in to develop their health prognosis or get a proper treatment plan. That's all this is. And it's coming. I mean, they're going to understand, and it's inevitable, like I said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing those insights. And I guess, as we are going towards the latter part of our conversation, one of the things that I wanted to also kind of understand from you, because you are a leader in point of care testing, especially an innovation in that, and I truly do see you as an innovator, to be honest. Like, you have really kind of forged a path of your own in the navigating the space, and it's no small feat. Let me say that for sure. How do you envision pharmacists and pharmacy professionals and community pharmacies kind of taking on this point of care testing and implementing it in the pharmacy community as the years go by? And what is our vision that looks like, or how does our vision look like to you?
Of course. No, that's a great question. And I think we're gonna, we take pride in working very closely with the pharmacists and all healthcare professionals
Mm-hmm.
to fully understand. And like you mentioned earlier, having the right tools and the SOPs set up so that they understand. We want to create an efficient workflow. We don't want to make anyone's life harder.
Right.
So we've just developed some great tools and streamlined everything, the entire process, so that when we approach any clinical setting, any pharmacy setting, we have something ready to go. It's comprehensive, it's easy to use. And so, I think that it's, like I said, as the Canadian Pharmacy or the association guidelines expand,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to incorporate more and more tests. And then, like I said, we get a number of calls every day for, do you have a test for strep? Do you have a test for influenza? Do you have a test for, tell me more about your vitamin D? We have pharmacists using all of these products. And so it's a wonderful transition. And I just see this taking off even further because there's obviously a huge demand for this from patients.
Absolutely. And what kind of supports, let's say, pharmacists who are interested in taking on, the point of care testing and also the medtech platform that you have created, what kind of supports can they expect from your company as they're trying to integrate these programs into their pharmacies?
Of course, yeah. So we fully understand all aspects that come with rapid diagnostic screening. So we've thought of every angle, everything, all the tools that are required. So we've gone as far as developing media files so that the
Wow.
pharmacists put their logos on them and help advertise or just help promote the screening. I mean, again, as we educate healthcare professionals, they want to educate the consumers. They're the
Yes.
ones coming into the store or the pharmacy wanting these tests or asking for it. So we thought, well, okay, we thought ahead. We need to have the right tools in mind or in place so that they
Mm-hmm.
can demonstrate to their patients and consumers that there's validity to the test, there's accuracy, high quality at stake here with the products that we have, high correlation to laboratory results.
Right.
And then, with the digital platform, of course, we have user manuals and just a step-by-step workflow that we've created as well. We understand what goes into all of this, and we specialize in this area. So taking all of these 25 plus years of expertise, we've put it all together into one nice seamless little package so that it's simple from the get-go. Everyone's busy, patients, professionals are patients as well. We're all
Exactly.
busy. So we want to, like I said, streamline that entire process and make things very simple to integrate. And adopting this type of screening solution or program is not a very difficult process, especially when we work with us, because we understand, we know what goes into community testing, because this is my passion. This is the company. This is what our mission is sort of built around.
Mm-hmm.
And so we understand all aspects of that business operation.
Absolutely. And you do have some quite big companies, especially when it comes to the pharmacy community, who are already your existing clients. So kind of speaks volumes in terms of, how well supported your customers are when they sign up for your services. And Sharmila, as we wrap up this conversation, I always have to ask this question to our guests just to make sure we get your vision of what the future is when it comes to digital health tech and point of care testing. So, maybe we can take one at a time. What is the future of point of care testing in the next 5 years?
Well, we've worked over the past 20 something years to really identify that there's a need and there was a gap for for rapid testing. So I just see it taking off even further, and this is the norm. I've spoken with various health professionals over the years, and they see this as well. I'm not just imagining things. This is, this is a seamless, this is something that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And so I do foresee other industries adopting similar programs, pharmacies obviously included. I see that happening as well, of course, but other industries, and it's only going to be heightened. I feel that there's going to be a shift even from, urine testing, for instance, and whole blood testing to say, oral fluid analysis, hair testing. There's so much out. Yeah,
you have me intrigued.
Yes, there's a lot that's coming. I mean, and not just with the company in general. I think it's just, or sorry, not with just my company, but in general, of course, right?
In point of care testing
so many shifts that I see happening. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And maybe I would love to have you back onto this podcast and we can talk about that hair testing point of care. That's so cool. Oh my gosh, my mind is just blown.
There's so many new developments. It's exciting. Rapid diagnostics is point of care testing is such an exciting industry or field. And as you can tell, I'm just so extremely ecstatic and passionate about this area.
You are so passionate, and that's really what motivated me to, I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I feel like, it's always great to hear from somebody who's truly passionate about the space that they're in, because that's when you know the ins and outs of what's happening, and how can you support your patients and your customers better when you already know everything. Like when you have the 360, then it's so much easier for you to support your clients that much better compared to if you are not as, I guess, you have over 25 years of experience, like you have everything with you, and no wonder why you were able to create Spectrum Medical Diagnostics into the company that it is today. But one last question for you, and I guess we'll wrap it up after this, but because you're also in the med tech space, can't resist but asking this to you. How do you describe the future of digital health tech in the next 5 years, and just drawing on some of your own experiences, where do you see that going over the next 5 years?
Of course, yes. Our mission right now is to really bridge the gap between medical device and software, and I saw a need for that. So digital innovation is crucial, and so coupled with point of care testing, again, it's going to be in a process that's going to be required. More and more people are getting on board with the concept of not only using rapid point of care testing, but also integrating that with online or digital platforms, because this is the age we live in. We're in a digital era, right? And tech is the way to go. I mean, if you look everywhere you look, it's technology, it's digital concepts, digital programs. So the fact that we're working so hard to bridge that gap in 5 to 7 years, that gap is going to be a little dot, it's that's what I foresee happening, of course. And this is the world we live in.
Absolutely.
We're headed that direction. Healthcare, why is healthcare exempt from that? It's not. It's going to be required, and it brings and it sort of touches on every aspect that we discussed today. The patients want results right away, reports. Professionals that are administering the tests want something they can access right away and store. Also, even just going back to with rapid test kits, these are medical devices. Lot maintenance, lot consistency, or regulation. It's all required when it comes to Health Canada. So it's imperative. So why not integrate the two? And I just I see big things happening within the digital healthcare space, and medtech is just again that's a very fascinating field for me as well, and I'm so happy that we could be a part of that. It's we have so many ideas, and like I said, so many new developments we have in the pipeline that we're working on for our Results Plus, and I'm so happy that we could talk about this, and happy to be able to really shed light on this, because this is the future.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Sharmila, for making the time to have this conversation with me here today, because truly learned so much from you. And I can't wait to share this conversation with our audience, because I know they'll have a lot more questions for you as well. And what we'll be doing is we'll be linking your information down below in the description box, so that anyone who wishes to reach out to you would be able to do so. And I really do encourage my audience to make sure that if you have any questions, or if you even are very curious about this point of care testing space, Sharmila Sharmila's your person to go to, ask those questions. And she's the most friendliest person I've ever met. And, we haven't even met in person yet, but I feel like I already have such a strong connection with you.
I feel like I already know you. I feel like we go back years, and thank you for this opportunity. And I mean, I'm so happy that I could have a conversation with you today about this area, this topic. It's something very important to me, but also to Canadians. And that goal of just minimizing the constraints on that system. I'm happy to be able to partner with anybody to help alleviate that constraint. But thank you for this opportunity. And of course, it feels like I've known you for so many years. It's we have to be mutual. Person. And your energy is wonderful.
Oh, same. And it goes right back to you because, trust me, I think we only reflect what we receive. So I truly do believe that, you cross paths with people you're meant to cross paths with. I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and, we were able to have this conversation as a result of it. So what better than that? But thank you so much, Sharmila, once again. I look forward to, sharing this conversation with our audience, and I really will make sure that we provide all your contact information so people can check out your company, what you're doing, and also reach out to you if they have any questions. And I really do wish you get a lot of inquiries from this conversation.
I would love it. I embrace the questions. I just love it. And I just love having conversations with people about this. So I really welcome the questions and any comments. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you for allowing this platform for me or providing the platform for me to articulate all of this. This is great.
Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to wrap up this conversation, but make sure to check out the links below. And also please hit that like button to show how much you liked this conversation. So we'll know what to bring you next, and whether we can also bring Sharmila next to answer some of your other questions that you may have. So put them in the comment box below so that we'll know what those questions are. With that, I'm going to sign off. Sharmila, thank you once again. And it was a pleasure having you.
Absolute pleasure of mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Till we see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.